and then there was supposed to be a Banjo 3E. It was in development. It was planned to come out. I mean, they had teased it for pretty much immediately after Banjo 2E came out.
They
They were teasing it.
they teased it, and they teased it at the end of the boss fight as like a
Yeah,
joke. Like when you
exactly.
beat Gruntilda for the second time, she goes, "I can't believe you did this again. I'll get you in Banjo 3E."
Right. And like so it was in development for the GameCube. They had released like, images and all this stuff and were teasing it. And then
Well,
Rare got sold
if you got
to
the
Microsoft.
the ice. I think that was the ice key in the first one or the second one. Because
Um
if you had, there was some like thing where like you use the Rumble Pack or something, and if you beat the game, if you beat Banjo Tooie 100%,
mhm.
that and I think if you've also had beaten Banjo Kazooie, I'm not sure if you had beaten that 100% or not, but you would unlock like screenshots for the sequel, or maybe that was for Banjo Kazooie for Banjo Tooie. I think
Yeah,
it was for
maybe.
Banjo. Never mind. I think it was for that. No, I'm sorry. If you get the ice key thing in Banjo Tooie, then you can unlock. Then like you get the dragon transformation with Kazooie, where the final boss fight is so much easier because she breathes fire and stuff,
Mhm.
which is pretty badass.
Yeah.
That's
Um
so anyway. Banjo 3E.
so it's planned to come out. Microsoft buys Rare, and basically anything that was being worked on for Nintendo games ceased because now Microsoft had their own console. The Xbox was coming out, and they wanted Rare to make games exclusively for them. So Rare made a couple of games, Grabbed by the Ghoulies. Um, there
Grab
was
by the ghoulies.
what was it? Cameo Elements of Power. It was a 360 release title.
Oh, I don't know about
Um,
that one.
it was an interesting game because they were trying to showcase the 360's like ability to like have a lot of stuff on screen at once. So
Oh, okay.
basically, in like the hub world of that, there was like this thing where you could like literally plow through an army of like bad guys, and like it was like literally like 100 of them on the screen at once.
Huh.
Um, so they do that, and then they start teasing that they're going to keep making this Banjo Kazooie sequel, and everyone's like, "Oh, maybe it's going to be Banjo 3. It's going to be awesome." Oh, they also made Conquer Live and Reloaded for Xbox. I forgot about that too.
Yeah, that's like just a remake. It's like
Yeah,
just a remaster of Conker's Bad Fur Day. And I think they
yeah,
censor it too.
yeah. I think so. Um, so they finally released Nuts and Bolts, and it was like the first problem with it is that I haven't played it myself, but I've seen like the video, I've seen the intro to it. They basically take they shit on the whole concept of the original Banjo Kazooie. Um,
I've never
like
played it. I think I played the demo and that's it.
well,
And I was
well, first they
confused by the
first
demo.
they teased Banjo 3 as like you see like they did this like trailer where he's running to go collect something and he like kind of hits like and it's like a fake backdrop and it drops down and then like you see this huge vast world so everyone's like holy crap it's going to be like this huge like thing where you're collecting all these items and it's a giant open world instead of just like separate levels so everyone was all excited. Then Banjo uh Nuts and Bolts come out and the first thing they do is shit on the collection aspect of the first two games. They're like basically the Lord of Games is like this weird robot dude who's like making you do all this bullshit. Is like, oh here, go collect all these like friggin' notes, and it's like literally just like a straight line of shit you have to collect. And he's like, oh, isn't this boring? This is just a collectathon. It's like basically like just making fun of the fact that like you collected items in the original game. And then like also Banjo and Kazooie are both fat. Like they haven't done anything since Banjo Tooie apparently, so they're like literally just fat and like Banjo has like trouble walking because he's so fat he's gonna like drop on the floor from like lack of exercise. And then like it was like a car game, like you built cars, and I guess the concept of having the cars was because like the levels were supposed to be big, so you needed something to get around, which is fine. But like they took out everything that was good about the first two, and it was just a boring open world, empty open world where you just drive around and do like these missions for like random friggin' people all around.
Yeah, that's kind of lame. It just turned into like Banjo Kazooie, the Fast and the Furious.
They basically were making it into what was popular at the time, which was like these open world games where you were just doing side quests for like people, like
Yeah,
almost like a
and
Grand Theft Auto kind of thing,
yeah,
something
and
like
just
that.
racing games or car games too.
Right, right.
No, I actually forgot about this with Banjo Tooie. So like, when she like seeks revenge, she like destroys Banjo's house, and like Banjo, Kazooie, Mumbo Jumbo, and Bottles are all playing poker, and then like Bottles gets like caught in the crossfire and dies.
Oh my God.
And she
He
turns
dies
King.
from his injuries the next morning, so he
Yeah,
went throughout the whole night
yeah,
suffering. Jesus, that's
yeah.
dark.
And then at the end, like Klungo like turns on you. Her sisters' names are Mingella and Blabelda. I, yeah, what a minge.
Minge.
Mingy. Gross. So gross. Um and then like at the end they're all like on top of her lair and they're playing hacky sack with the head and that's where she says the line, "I'll get you in Banjo 3." But like
Right.
they're kind of assholes too.
Well, I mean, I think it's justified that she killed their best friend, the
Yeah.
friggin' Bottles. Like, I don't, I think friggin' playing hacky sack with her dismembered head is like the least bad thing they could do to
Ah.
her.
Yeah, that's true, especially with Mumbo around.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was the first Banjo Kazooie game released on a non Nintendo system, and it shows. Just
Yeah.
it was just not want. It was just not the game that anybody wanted to make, and
No.
there were also some. There was also the handheld game Grunty's Revenge, which that one I never played.
I never played it either.
I don't know. Here, let me see the synopsis of this thing. Taking place 2 months after Banjo Kazooie, Klungo, Gruntilda's most loyal henchman, makes a robot for Gruntilda's spirit to dwell inside. The newly created Mecha Grunty. Okay, this. Oh, so that's where we get the Grunty robot in Nuts and Bolts, because this one actually
Yeah.
came out in 2003, Grunty's Revenge, and then Nuts and Bolts was 2008. So
Yeah.
okay, so that makes sense. The newly created Mecha Grunty, infused with the transferred Gruntilda spirit, travels back in time to present the first meeting of Banjo to prevent the first meeting of Banjo and Kazooie. Oh, that's actually interesting.
Yeah.
Banjo and Kazooie, with assistance from their shaman friend Mumbo Jumbo, at it again, stops her plans and sends her back to beneath the boulder in Spiral Mountain. Gruntilda commands Klungo to contact her sisters, setting the events of Banjo Tooie in motion. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so that's an interesting little link between the two games there.
Yeah, I like that. It would have been nice if they did that in a real console. And then there was something else called Banjo Pilot, where it's not really part of the series at all. It's like just a plane racing game of some kind.
So that's interesting because Diddy Kong Racing also had
Oh,
planes.
that's what was planned. The game was
Yeah.
originally planned as a sequel to Diddy Kong Racing, titled Diddy Kong Pilot, but was retooled to feature Banjo Kazooie characters following the purchase of Rare by Microsoft. Okay, so that might be the game that was featured in the demo for the GameCube, but then after all this happened, they couldn't do it.
No, well, they
Maybe.
were actually planning on making Banjo
Well,
3.
oh
So this, I think,
no,
was a
no, because
separate
this was
thing.
also Game Boy Advance. No, you're right,
Yeah.
because this was a separate thing. No, I wasn't talking about Banjo 3. I was talking about the Diddy Kong Racing sequel. But
Oh,
no,
yeah.
this is probably its own separate thing anyway, and that's probably something that I think they. I don't know if they did anything. I don't know if they ever did like a Did You Know Gaming about that.
I don't know.
I don't
think so.
know. But
The purchase of Rare by Microsoft, which was an interesting situation legally because Rare had been making the Donkey Kong games up to that point, and Donkey Kong was a Nintendo IP. Like that was, Donkey Kong
Yeah.
was the original Nintendo arcade game, and like that was the origin of Mario. So like when they had Diddy Kong Racing that had Banjo and Conker in it, but then they couldn't make another game like that because Microsoft they couldn't make a sequel to Diddy Kong Racing because their characters that were in Diddy Kong Racing were now in that were now owned by Microsoft. So it's interesting because a lot of the original Rare games that, like, the classic Rare, like Jet Force Gemini, Perfect Dark, Banjo Kazooie, Banjo Tooie, have now been re-released as the Rare Rewind on Xbox. So it's like it's interesting that like how things turned out legally, because these are games that were on the Nintendo 64 and are now on Xbox. But then like the Donkey Kong Country games they couldn't include, obviously, because it's like Nintendo IPs. And now we've come full circle because Banjo Kazooie are now back into Smash Brothers. So it's like, we're back, everything has kind of come full circle in terms of like copyright, I guess.
Yeah, that's a weird one.
Yeah.
Oh, there was also something called the Stop and Swap in the first one, where like you were from Banjo Kazooie, where like you were supposed to get special content from Banjo Tooie, but they never really like did it. Apparently, due to like Nintendo 64 revisions.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff that was
so it just never happened. Like you couldn't get the ice key, you couldn't get 6 different eggs to like get all the things. But like, there's the only way to do it is like you have to like you got to try to hack it somehow. But sometimes
it's probably in the code, in the source code still.
Yeah, or like if you use like a Game Shark thing and you could do it. But
Yeah.
like sometimes you could do it, and sometimes you like it would just erase all of your files. So like you like when you did it, you like really risked like losing it all.
Yeah,
So
I think the people that were doing it and like data mining and stuff like that are usually people that are like not trying to like worry about their files getting erased. They just want to see what's in the code that was cut and stuff like that.
yeah.
So that's why I don't think people care about it as much.
No, well, I mean, also they eventually got to play the sequel, so at this point it didn't even matter.
Yeah.
But yeah, so and then Banjo. So after all of this like Rare stuff, the folks from the folks who were on Rare, the Stampers and all those guys, they like it just wasn't even the same.
No.
And they quit basically. Like they abruptly quit. And I mean, even if you like look at the if you look at the like just the cover from Banjo Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, the art is like so drastically different that like they're all like square.
Banjo doesn't look right. It doesn't look like Banjo from the original. Like it looks too realistic a little bit.
It just looks like Elvis on like it just looks like Elvis on like a crack bender.
Yeah. Kazooie does not look right either.
Also looks like she's been on a crack bender. Or Meth, he's a mechanic, he's working on cars, you gotta stay up late.
It's like they were trying to appeal to like a more adult, like I don't want to say adult, but like an older audience, like a teenage audience. And it's like, but people that were teenagers when this game came out were like,
that's who wanted to buy the game,
or were too young to play the original. So it's like, why are you appealing to teenagers? Appeal to the people that were like young adults when this came out. Like, we were November 2008. We were like the generation that grew up playing Banjo Kazooie was like 18,
because you and I were 8 playing Banjo Kazooie.
Yeah.
So I mean, if that doesn't give away our age, I don't know what does. But they just misfired, and I think it was just because Microsoft probably had too much control over it, and they didn't know what they really had. And like it's like the thing to do would have just been, hey, we should do a sequel to let's do a sequel to this thing, or maybe they were bothering them to do it, and they were like, all right, just do it. We'll leave you alone. Make this game, and we'll put it out instead of it was probably micromanaged to such a degree that like they couldn't do what they would have liked to do.
No, and this was also a time in gaming where like gaming was becoming more and more popular, and all these companies wanted to get rich instead of like make games as art, which I think was what we grew up playing before gaming was like super mainstream and popular. It was like the games were art. It was like they were better because people were pouring their heart and soul into it and making a good game, and they weren't thinking about, oh, I want to make a quick buck. It's like, I want to make a game that's good to play and fun to play.
Right.
And right at this time is when that started to change. Call of Duty was like very popular. Like, so, everyone wanted to make like a popular game that was going to sell a lot of money or sell a lot of units and make a lot of money.
Yeah, if it
And
wasn't a sports game, it was a first-person shooter.
what?
Like that
Oh,
was kind of the
oh,
market
yeah.
at the time. It was
Right.
like
Yeah, exactly.
because also
Um,
Halo was like the big. It was also like
yeah.
huge too. Like if it wasn't like anything that like if you weren't a first-person shooter and you weren't a sports game, you were Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, essentially. There was a few RPGs here and there, like Elder Scrolls Oblivion came out in 2005, I think. Um, but like again, it was like the biggest games were Madden and Call of Duty, Halo. Grand Theft Auto. I think was the one exception where there was like kind of a game that was like just like an open world, third person kind of game.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it's so and that's what they were really trying to do here is it was trying to make I guess something similar to a Grand Theft Auto where like you drive cars around and
And do missions and stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, the
And
only
there was a lot of games that took that formula too, like The Simpsons, Hit and Run.
I was actually gonna say that was probably the one that did it the best,
Yeah,
but it was also The Simpsons, so you knew
right,
what you were getting with that. Where like
exactly.
this was like Banjo Kazooie nuts and bolts. All right, well, like okay, what is this?
And it could have been good. Like they could have done the building aspect of it and the car aspect, and still kept it, close to what the original Banjo Kazooie was. Like a platformer, an action platformer adventure game. Like, and it would have worked. Like they could have
Yeah,
just made the levels bigger so that you have to drive to like separate parts of the level to get what you need to get. But then like also had the platforming. Like you drive from like this like mountain over here where there's like a castle on top that you have to climb up to down to over here where it's like this like ocean part where like you have to go under the water and explore like a cave or something.
right. And if you really wanted to use to like really put the cars in like a more of a focal point, just like add a couple of like races here and there, but like
Right.
don't make it like don't make it the heaviest feature of the game.
Yeah.
There's a good balance where you can where like people will appreciate it.
Hmm.
And there's actually a point in Nuts and Bolts where like you build a plane and like you have to crash through like a thing that looks like Mario, which they like heavily featured
Really?
in the trailer. Yeah. Yeah, there was like
Uh,
it was like some kind of a thing where like you're flying through this like block statue or like something and it bears a resemblance to Mario.
so this is like one of those situations where like the people that were like the people that were making it wanted to make it good, but then like the people that were really in control, the powers that be, like wanted it their way. Like,
Yeah, it kind of just seemed like the powers that be just like wanted to just like give Nintendo the middle finger with this game.
which is a stupid thing because
Well,
the
of
original Banjo
course.
Kazooie was on a Nintendo console. The fans that were going to be playing it were going to be fans of Nintendo or at least Nintendo 64. You know, like a game like this, who are they? They're not expecting like new players to play it. That I don't think. I think this was should have been geared towards people looking for a Banjo Tooie sequel.
Well, it should
You
have been,
know,
but if Microsoft actually had cared about this project, then it probably would have been a great game and we'd be having a different conversation. But
that's true.
I don't think, I mean, I don't know. I've never worked for Microsoft. I don't think that I will, and I don't think that I'll ever work with anybody that had anything to do with this game. So, but like in interviews that some of the developers have come out and like spoken out about this, this
Hmm.
made them quit Rare essentially.
Yes. Yeah, basically the entire like original staff that like worked on all those classic games were gone after this.
Yeah, they just
And
said screw this.